Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a book. No, really imagine it. Selling, what was it, 2.7 million copies?
In its first week?
First week.
Oh.
Just astounding. It became
Yeah.
the fastest-selling adult novel in, like, 20 years.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a book that just exploded online, fan art everywhere, these viral reaction videos, you've seen them, and whole communities just popping up to dissect every single twist.
Oh, absolutely. The fandom is intense.
We are talking, of course, about Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros, and today we are plunging deep, really deep into the heart of this romantasy phenomenon. Onyx Storm, the latest installment in the Empyrean series, and maybe the most impactful one yet.
I think you could definitely argue that. And our mission today for you listening is to really pull out the most important pieces, the key knowledge and insights from all the buzz and the text itself. We're not just going to recap the plot.
No.
We want to understand its really intricate plot, dissect that ending, which was, wow, critically acclaimed, but also super debated online. We'll explore these powerful themes, especially around identity and transformation, which get pretty unsettling. And ultimately, we're going to try and figure out what makes this book such a massive, record-breaking success in the romantasy genre.
Yeah, what's the secret sauce?
It's a journey into a real blockbuster, and there are definitely some surprising things hidden right there in the pages.
So prepare yourself. We're diving into some really high emotional stakes. The brutal cost of being a hero, maybe. And we'll look at why Onyx Storm leaves readers feeling both totally thrilled and, yeah, surprisingly divided. Maybe even a bit controversially so. By the end of our chat today, you'll be really well informed on why this book isn't just, another bestseller. It feels more like a cultural moment.
It really does.
So after the really fiery events of Iron Flame, the big venin reveal, everything, where exactly do we pick things up at Onyx Storm? The world's definitely shifted, hasn't it? What's the new political lay of the land?
Oh, it's shifted dramatically. And it's way more precarious than it ever was before. We find the kingdoms of Navarre and Poromil, remember, they were bitter enemies for centuries.
Right, mortal enemies.
Now, almost unbelievably, they're joined by revolutionaries from Tyrrendor. And they forged this, well, alliance is the word, but it's incredibly fragile, super tense.
Okay.
And what's really crucial to get here is that this unity, it's not born out of, newfound friendship or shared values.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No warm fuzzies here.
Definitely not. This coalition is purely forged out of desperate shared necessity. They have to make a stand against this existential threat, the invading venin, these magic wielders who literally drain life and magic from the world, just turning everything to dust.
Consume everything.
Exactly. And what makes this setup so fascinating and what the sources really dig into is that it's not just your standard good versus evil fight.
Right. It's more complex.
Much more. It's this multifactional struggle where these deep-seated ancient hatreds, historical grievances, centuries of bad blood, it all has to be forcibly pushed aside just for survival. Imagine two countries that have been fighting for generations suddenly having to share intel, share resources, fight side by side.
Yeah, the tension must be unbelievable.
It adds huge layers of political complexity, and that psychological tension is just simmering under the surface constantly. The stakes feel so much more real, more nuanced, because you're always aware that the internal threat, the mistrust within the alliance, is almost as dangerous as the venin outside.
Right, it could implode at any moment.
Precisely. This whole coalition is built on sheer terrifying necessity, and you, as the reader, you feel that tension in every single interaction. The smallest argument, the slightest suspicion could shatter the whole thing.
And smack dab in the middle of this huge geopolitical mess, navigating these fragile alliances and this, world-ending threat, we have Violet Sorrengail. But her story isn't just about saving the world, is it? She's carrying this absolutely enormous personal burden. It connects her fate directly to the bigger crisis.
Oh, absolutely. Her personal stakes are completely tangled up with the fate of their worlds. Violet's got this central dual mission, and that's what really pushes the narrative forward with such emotional power. First, and probably the most painful thing for her, her love, Xaden Rierson. He's afflicted by venin corruption.
Right. He channeled to save her, didn't he?
He did. And this isn't just a physical illness. It's described as an erosion of his soul, a slow slide into the very darkness he fought so hard against. So her fierce determination to save him, to find some kind of cure before he's completely lost, that's her biggest motivator.
It's a love story in the middle of an apocalypse.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, how far would you go to save the person you love, even if it means risking everything else? Your principles, your allies, maybe even the world.
Heady stuff.
And then secondly, her quest to actually find this cure for Xaden. It becomes this continent-spanning journey, a desperate race against time. She's searching for the rare Irid dragon breed. They're believed to hold the key, not just for powering a potential cure for Xaden's venin problem, but also, crucially, for strengthening the defenses of Aricia.
Which is their last hope, basically.
Their last bastion, yeah, a city they thought was lost. So this intertwining of her deep personal devotion to Xaden with the absolute geopolitical necessity of securing their kingdom's future, that sets up the novel's central agonizing tension. Every choice she makes for Xaden impacts the war effort, and every choice she makes for the war impacts her quest to save him.
There's no easy answer.
None at all. There's no escaping the consequences, and that constant pressure just creates incredibly compelling drama. You feel the weight of every decision she makes.
Okay, what I find really fascinating here, and it feels like a smart move by Rebecca Yarros, is how she structures this whole discovery process. It's not just one long linear quest, A to B to C, which could get a bit repetitive.
Yeah, good drag.
Instead, it's like this series of distinct trials, almost like mini episodes, that Violet and her squad have to get through. It feels less like a traditional epic journey and more like, I don't know, like levels in a really high-stakes game, but in a good way.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, Yarros uses what you could call a chained series of island-hopping expeditions, or maybe a serial quest structure. Each island basically works as its own little mini-arc, and each one is clearly designed to escalate the stakes.
Right, raise the tension each time.
Exactly. It keeps the pacing incredibly fast and allows her to introduce new parts of the world, new magic systems, deeper moral problems without losing that forward momentum. It's a really clever way to build towards that inevitable, huge climax, making sure every step feels like it matters. You're always learning something new about the world or the characters, and that pressure just keeps building and building.
Okay, let's dive into these trials then, because each one seems designed to strip something away from Violet or demand an even bigger sacrifice.
Yeah.
Starting with Deverelli. That sounds like a tough first stop after, the big plans back in Erasia.
Deverelli is definitely a brutal start. A real sharp dose of reality after the relative safety, you can call it that, of Erasia. It's introduced as a magicless realm.
Ah, okay. Big disadvantage.
Huge. Immediately puts Violet and her dragon-riding friends way out of their comfort zone. Their main goal there is to find her dad's old journals and books. They're hoping there are some cryptic clues, maybe some forgotten lore about the venin cure or these elusive Irid dragons.
Right, find some ancient knowledge.
But the immediate threat isn't magical, it's very human. It comes from King Cortland. He's openly hostile. And because there's no magic, Violet has to rely completely on her wits, her diplomatic skills, something she's still figuring out, frankly. She can't just blast her way through problems here.
And isn't this where the Andon thing gets worse?
Yes, crucially. It's on Deverelli where we see Xaden's first truly undeniable relapse into Earth-based channeling. It's huge. He's tried to hide it, keep it under control, but here there's this public, uncontrollable burst of venin-tainted power. It explicitly shows everyone how terrifyingly far his corruption has progressed.
Wow, okay, so it's out in the open now.
It is. It's not just a little slip-up. It's this stark, horrifying moment that sends shockwaves through their group. And it's a brutal reminder for Violet of just how close Xaden is to being completely lost. This whole situation forces Violet, who, remember, started out as quite idealistic, wanting to fight honorably into this desperate diplomatic game to try and win Deverelli's support. She has to make these really morally gray compromises.
Yeah, you see her changing.
Definitely. It highlights her rapid and probably uncomfortable shift from that hopeful writer into a more pragmatic, maybe even ruthless strategist. She's learning fast that some battles aren't won with lightning, they're won with negotiation, and sometimes that comes with losing a bit of your innocence, a bit of your moral high ground.
And from that kind of morally murky beginning, they head to Unburial, the Isles of Dun. What waits for them there? Sounds like maybe more direct danger.
Unburial throws a different kind of challenge at them, yeah. More physical, more immediately threatening. Here, the squad gets forced into battling these really formidable temple champions. It's a series of intense, high-stakes duels that properly test their combat skills, their teamwork, their sheer grit.
And what are they trying to get there?
Something incredibly precious. They're negotiating for rare dragon eggs. These are vital for the war effort, vital for potentially finding a new Irid lineage to power the wards. Imagine the tension. These aren't just objects. They represent the future of their fight.
Huge stakes.
Massive. But Umbrella also delivers something more insidious, an ominous sign that goes beyond just fighting. They suffer some significant political betrayals here, not just minor squabbles, but actions that seriously undermine their mission and, maybe more importantly, their trust in supposed allies.
Ah, okay, so not just external threats.
Exactly. These betrayals serve as really clear foreshadowing of even bigger losses to come, especially regarding alliances and the whole idea of loyalty. It really drives home the point that even if you win the immediate fight, even if you get the eggs, there can be this deeper hidden cost and fractured trust. It leaves this lingering sense of unease. It's a clever way Yarros ramps up the stakes, showing danger isn't just the enemy outside. It can come from within your own camp, too.
Then they traveled to Hedotus, the Wisdom Isle. Okay, the name suggests something different again, right? More about brains than brawn.
You're absolutely right. Hedotus demands cleverness, psychological strength, rather than just fighting ability. Here, Violet faces this poisoned feast situation within Xordan's own mother's council.
His mother's council.
Yeah, talk about complicated family dynamics. And it's not just a literal threat of poison in the food that's there too. It's a social and political minefield. It's designed to test her ingenuity, her ability to navigate these treacherous waters among powerful, deeply suspicious figures who probably don't trust her at all.
Okay, so she has to be smart.
Extremely. And this trial really solidifies Violet's growth in a key way. She shows, again, her increasing willingness to sacrifice her own moral comfort, her own sense of right and wrong sometimes, for the bigger goal of building alliances. It's this recurring, painful theme, the grim pragmatism needed in war, where your ideals often smash violently against the necessary, difficult, sometimes morally dirty choices you have to make.
She's getting harder.
She is, more
Right.
calculating. Which is a strength, it helps her survive, but it's also clearly a source of constant internal conflict for her. She's grappling with who she's becoming. Is she losing herself in the process?
And after navigating that mess, they land on Xihulna, the Luck Isle.
Yeah.
That name feels a bit ominous, doesn't it? Like luck can run out.
It does, and it proves tragically accurate. Xihulna throws them into this deadly game of gifts. Sounds almost whimsical, right?
Yeah, not threatening at all.
But it has truly fatal consequences. This island delivers a really profound, devastating lesson with the heartbreaking death of Traeger and his Riffin.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah. It's brutal. And this moment just starkly underscores the reality that luck can be fatal. Each island on this journey demands its own unique code of risk, its own specific sacrifice. It's a harsh reminder that not every challenge can be beaten with skill or magic or even cleverness. Sometimes it's just about surviving arbitrary dangers or the cruel randomness of fate. The emotional impact of losing Traeger hits the squad really hard, reminding them just how close to death they constantly are.
So after all these incredibly tough trials, these physical tests, these moral crucibles, they finally reach the smaller final islands. And they actually encounter the Irid dragons. This has to be it, right? The moment of hope, the solution they've risked everything for.
There's this initial surge of hope. Yeah, you can feel it coming off the page. A desperate sense of anticipation. The Irid dragons finally show up in significant numbers. It's the moment the characters and you, the reader, have been waiting for, believing this is where they'll find the cure for Xaden. This is where they'll get the power for the Ward Stone. It feels like, okay, finally, the light at the end of this incredibly dark tunnel.
But, I sense a but.
There's a huge but. What follows is this crushing, almost soul-destroying rejection. The Irids don't welcome them. They don't offer help. Instead, they explicitly reject Violet's use of Endarna, her second dragon, the small golden one who grew into this powerful, unique force.
They reject her. Why?
They don't see her bond with Endarna as natural or right, especially given how she's been used in combat. They don't see Violet as a champion. They condemn her methods, explicitly labeling her bond, her actions, as bloodthirsty.
Wow. That's devastating.
It's utterly devastating because it throws up this profound moral dilemma about weaponizing dragonkind. The very beings she hoped would be their salvation, the key to saving Xaden, they judge her, they condemn her, and it leaves her with this deep, unsettling question about the real ethical cost of their fight. Are they becoming the monsters they're trying to stop?
Right. Is the cure worse than the disease in a way?
Exactly. This moment forces Violet to confront the ethical fallout of her choices, and it leaves her completely reeling. She's been denied the very solution she risked everything for, and on moral grounds, no less.
So this whole island-hopping journey, It's not just about ticking boxes on a quest list.
Not at all. Each island serves a much deeper purpose. It forces Violet to constantly reevaluate her definitions of honor, loyalty, sacrifice. They relentlessly push her character arc forward, moving her further and further from that initial idealism, forging her into this grittier, more pragmatic, maybe even colder leader. And crucially, throughout this whole multi-island odyssey, the squad is constantly losing things.
Yeah, allies, resources.
Allies, precious dragon eggs are vanishing. Even more dragons themselves are dying. All of this systematically builds this relentless feeling of escalating desperation, of impending doom. It's a chilling countdown towards the inevitable cataclysmic climax that gives the book its name, the Onyx Storm.
Okay, this is where things get really intense, maybe even heartbreaking. Because right around the middle of the book, emotionally speaking, the whole narrative just takes this sharp, dark turn. It stops being just about the venin outside, the foundations of trust, of hope. They start to crumble from within.
That's exactly right. The midpoint delivers this devastating 1-2 punch, a two-pronged betrayal that just fundamentally shatters the protagonist's hopes and undermines everything they've achieved so far. First, you have the irid rejection we just talked about.
Yeah, the bloodthirsty label.
Right. The very dragons they needed, the solution they were banking on, pull their support because they judge Violet's methods. That's a betrayal of expectation, a profound moral blow, and a massive strategic setback for their quest. It's a moment where a potential ally effectively becomes an obstacle based on principle.
Okay, that's one punch. What's the second?
The second betrayal is even more intimate, more shattering, because it comes from inside their own ranks, from a place they thought was safe. Rydok, who was a trusted ally, part of their tight-knit Iron Squad. He discovers Xaden's venin secret.
Oh, wow. He finds out Xaden's been channeling.
He finds out the terrifying truth that Xaden's been drawing on dark magic to save Violet, to save his people. And this discovery just shatters the trust within the Iron Squad. This group that was supposed to be their rock, their family.
Yeah, their support system.
Exactly. Suddenly, these people who were potential saviors, fierce protectors, they now see Xaden as an internal threat, or at the very least, someone deeply compromised, someone who could turn on them, who could become a danger to everyone.
That's brutal.
It's incredibly brutal. So you have this dual betrayal from the external allies they desperately needed, and from within their most trusted circle. It just catapults the narrative into much darker, much more desperate territory. It hammers home the point that alliances alone, no matter how hard you fight for them, can't guarantee victory or even basic safety. Once trust is broken like that, it's incredibly hard to fix, especially when the survival of your whole world is on the line. It really leaves you, the reader, wondering if anyone can truly be trusted anymore.
And all of these threads, the challenges, the betrayals, the desperation, they all just converge in this one cataclysmic event, the battle for Erasia, where the Onyx Storm really makes his presence felt. This isn't just another fight, is it? It feels like an epic, brutal, and deeply personal clash that changes everything.
Oh, it is absolutely an epic clash. A true crucible moment that pushes every single character to their absolute limit, their breaking point. The climax of the novel is just. The sheer scale and intensity of the venin siege on Erasia is overwhelming. You have these massive green fire wyverns, giant corrupted dragon-like beasts, and hordes of venin magic wielders swarming the city. And supporting them, this summoned oppressive storm that blankets everything in darkness, despair. It's just pure chaos, utter desperation. The odds feel completely insurmountable.
And amidst all that chaos, Violet.
Yeah.
She does something extraordinary, but also terrifying with her powers, right?
She does. She undergoes this profound personal sacrifice, and it involves a terrifying evolution of her abilities. She wields her newly honed dream-walking powers, that second signet, her unique gift from Andarna that lets her literally step inside other people's minds.
Which is incredibly invasive when you think about it.
Extremely. It gives her this intimate access to their thoughts, their fears. And her specific target in the battle is Theophany, this formidable storm-wielding maven, a high-ranking venin commander. And chillingly, Theophany is presented almost as this dark mirror image of Violet's own late mother, General Sorrengail.
Wow, okay. So it's personal.
Deeply personal. It becomes this symbolic battle against the very type of power her mother fought. And Violet uses a temple dagger, which was gifted to her, crucially, with the help of Eric's precognition signet, his ability to see glimpses of the future. She uses that dagger to deliver the killing blow. It's a moment of incredible personal power for Violet, yeah, but it also comes with this immense internal conflict. She's grappling with the morally ambiguous, even violating nature of her dream walking. Can you even be a hero if you're using powers like that.
Right. Does the end justify the means?
That's a question hanging over her. But the real horrifying centerpiece of this battle, the thing that is the literal Onyx Storm, is Xaden's cataclysmic transformation.
Okay, this is the big one.
This is it. From his vantage point, seeing Violet in mortal danger, knowing the battle is basically lost, Xaden makes the ultimate sacrifice. He fully, completely surrenders his soul to the venin corruption. He embraces the darkness he fought so hard against for so long.
Oh my God.
And this desperate act, it unleashes the literal Onyx Storm. A devastating channeling event, this maelstrom of destructive shadow and earth power that just obliterates the venin forces in this wave of terrifying, all-consuming energy. It's a moment of just unparalleled, horrific power and total self-destruction.
But the cost?
The cost is absolute. The tragic consequence is that this act irrevocably marks him as lost to darkness. It completely blurs the lines between heroism and tragedy. His self-sacrifice for the people he loves turns him into something monstrous. And remember that quote from the prologue narration?
The one about shadow and lightning wielders.
Yeah. The last time a shadow and lightning wielder fought side by side, they managed to drive the venin back. It's such a clear, haunting connection to Xaden and Violet fighting together here, highlighting their combined devastating power, but also foreshadowing this agonizing, soul-crushing cost. He saved them, but lost himself.
And it's not just Xaden, right? There are other losses in this battle.
Oh, definitely. Amidst all this epic spectacle, the story doesn't pull any punches with the intimate, heartbreaking losses. Dragons fall from the sky. You feel their deaths through the rider bonds. Friends die. Notably Quinn, one of Violet's really close allies. Her last words, "We made it a good one," just become this gut-wrenching reminder of the price they all paid.
Oh, that's rough.
It is. The victory in Erasia, while essential, comes at this agonizingly high price. It leaves the survivors deeply scarred physically and emotionally. It's a victory that honestly feels much more like a profound defeat for those left standing, left to carry that cost.
So the storm finally breaks. Erasia is, well, it's saved, but it's in ruins. What does this all mean for the characters? And maybe more importantly, for you, the reader, who's just been through this absolute ringer of a climax, because this is where the book just refuses to give you closure, doesn't it? It leaves you dangling, desperate for what's next.
It absolutely does. It's a masterclass in crafting a devastating cliffhanger. The immediate aftermath is just disorienting and incredibly grim. Erasia is in ruins, yeah, and that physical destruction perfectly mirrors the internal devastation of the characters. Violet wakes up, and initially it seems like maybe there's a celebration happening at Ryerson House, a fleeting moment of relief.
But it doesn't last.
Not at all. That sense of triumph is immediately shattered by this cascade of brutal, shocking news. She learns about the casualties. 4 fellow riders and their dragons are dead. Plus 3 of the revered elders were killed in the battle. The sheer scale of the loss is immense, gut-wrenching. It makes any sense of victory feel completely hollow.
And there's more bad news, isn't there?
Oh, yes. The shocking revelations keep coming. There's this deepening, terrifying mystery of the missing. 5 riders, including Xaden and his closest friend, have just vanished. No trace.
Vanished. Like captured.
Nobody knows. Their fates are completely unknown, leaving this gaping wound of uncertainty. And just to pile on the peril and the mystery, 6 precious dragon eggs have also disappeared, snatched from the ruins of Erasia.
The eggs. Oh, no.
Yeah. Hinting at more dangers, unresolved threats waiting in the wings. So it's this victory that's just riddled with these profound voids, a celebration stained with blood and a mountain of unanswered questions.
But then comes the twist, the one that just exploded online, the one everyone was talking about, the memory wipe.
Oh,
Such a bold move.
That is the emotional gut punch that defines this ending. And yeah, bold is an understatement. It's utterly audacious. Violet discovers her memories of the last 12 hours. The entire brutal battle, the sacrifices made, the intimate moments, the full horror of Xaden's transformation, all of it has been completely erased from her mind.
Just gone.
Gone. The joy, the terror, the relief of survival, it's just a blank space, a profound, unsettling void. And to make it even worse, she finds a wedding ring on her finger. Yeah. But she has absolutely no memory of marrying Xaden. None whatsoever. So what should have been this moment of triumph, right? A culmination of their intense bond after everything. Instead, it's transformed into this profound personal emptiness, a gilded cage built on forgotten vows.
Why? Why would someone do that to her?
Well, the sources hint that the memory erasure was, quote, chosen to spare her pain. like some twisted act of mercy.
That seems counterproductive.
Massively. In a cruel irony, instead of sparing her pain, it creates these profound hauntings. She's left with this unsettling sense of loss, this confusion, this grief she can't even identify, rather than any kind of relief. And as if that wasn't enough, losing those memories, losing her understanding of their bond in that critical moment, it also fundamentally severs her connection physically, emotionally with her Irid dragon Andarna.
Oh, the bond breaks.
It creates this deep emotional and magical disconnect. It's truly heartbreaking. It's a double tragedy. She loses her memory and she loses that vital bond.
Wow. Okay. Just when you think it can't get worse.
Right, but wait, there's more. There's the unexpected royal marriage. In a twist absolutely no reader saw coming, it turns out a secret, clandestine ceremony took place during that missing time, and it has made Violet the Duchess of Tyrrendor.
Duchess?
Yeah.
How? Why?
It seems this forced union was performed to secure desperate alliances to protect the now very fractured kingdom. But the effect is it transforms her hard-won victory into this gilded cage. She has the title, she has power, she's secured safety for her people, but at the cost of her own agency, her memories, and maybe her entire sense of self. It just amplifies the personal stakes dramatically, even while the venin threat is still out there looming. Now it's all complicated by Violet's deeply compromised personal state. She's won, technically, but what has she really gained and what has she lost?
This is exactly where the book refuses to give you any neat answers, isn't it? It just leaves you, the reader, teetering right on the edge, desperate for the next installment. It's not just a cliffhanger. It feels like a deliberate narrative choice to maximize every single unresolved question.
Absolutely. The book ends on multiple, truly agonizing, unanswered questions. What's Xaden's true fate? Can he ever come back from the venin corruption, or is he just gone, lost that darkness forever? Where are the missing dragon eggs, and what terrifying things could happen if they fall into the wrong hands? Can the broken bonds within their group ever be mended, especially poignantly, the bond between Violet and Andarna? And what about Violet's new, completely disorienting identity as this newlywed duchess with no memory of the most pivotal 12 hours of her life?
It's a lot to leave hanging.
It is. Fans described the ending as unforgettable, praising its raw emotional sacrifice, its sheer audacity. But at the same time, people debated its abruptness, that feeling of, well, the queasy thrill of living within its many unknowns, as one fan put it. It means the next book has to start under this incredible, almost suffocating weight of tension. There's significant unresolved personal and political turmoil for every single character. You're left absolutely desperate to know what happens next, but also wondering how on earth anything could possibly resolve these monumental issues. It was a huge gamble by Yarros, and clearly it paid off by making readers completely obsessed with finding out what's next.
Okay, so beyond the absolutely thrilling plot, the intricate world, that devastating cliffhanger, Onyx Storm feels like it's exploring something much deeper, too. This idea of how power, especially power tied up with darkness, fundamentally reshapes who you are. It's a really profound, sometimes uncomfortable look at identity and sacrifice.
It absolutely is. I think the central argument woven through the whole book is that the literal Onyx Storm, and also the metaphorical storm within the characters, acts as this crucible. Identities aren't just forged in it, they're fundamentally altered. Moral limits get pushed relentlessly, and even the strongest bonds can be, well, irrevocably severed. It really digs into what it means to be a hero when you're forced to make these impossible, soul-crushing choices. It asks you and the characters, what parts of yourself are you willing to burn away to win?
Yeah, and the most obvious example of that is Xaden, right? His transformation is just chilling.
Chilling is the right word. His metamorphosis into venin is the most dramatic, agonizing illustration of this theme. Remember, his path started with a selfless act channeling earth magic to save Violet's life, to protect his people.
Right, he did it for love, for duty.
Exactly. But that act, intended for good, it just cascades into this complete, terrifying redefinition of his entire sense of self. It's not just a physical corruption, this internal rot, it's existential. It's literally a bargain he made with darkness. And the dark clouds of the Onyx Storm itself, they symbolically mirror his escalating inner turmoil, that tragic loss of his humanity. Every time he uses that venin power, it chips away at his ethics, his relationships, his core being. It blurs his heroic intentions into these destructive, uncontrollable impulses.
He becomes this tragic figure.
Completely. A tragic duality, his former courage, his deep love for Violet, it's all still there, but it's fused with this new consuming darkness, and that becomes the heart of his tragedy. It leaves you, the reader, mourning the hero he was, even as you witness the unstoppable, terrifying force he's become. It makes that moment where Violet says, the pain, the mess, give it to me, I'll hold it, even more poignant. It shows the depth of their bond, but it tragically contrasts with the horrifying, irreversible outcome of his sacrifice. He took on a burden that literally reshaped his soul.
And it's not just Xaden going through this transformation, is it? Violet is also undergoing this huge, maybe quieter, but equally significant moral reckoning. She's forced into making some incredibly tough, often morally gray choices. How does she change? And what's the cost for her?
Her transformation runs parallel to Xaden's, and it's just as profound, though maybe more insidious, creeping up on her. Faced with these impossible alliances, constant threats, betrayals from all sides, Violet consistently chooses grim pragmatism over her initial idealism.
Yeah, the hopeful rider is kind of gone.
Steadily, painfully, yes. She's replaced by this harder, more calculating strategist. Every alliance she manages to secure, every enemy she has to deceive, every difficult, maybe even dirty decision she makes, it deepens her self-doubt. It underscores that the price of power, especially in wartime, is often the erosion of your original identity, or at least the integrity of your moral compass. She's constantly wrestling with that question, am I still the person I wanted to be, or am I just becoming another ruthless player in this game?
And her second signet, the dreamwalking, that must complicate things even more.
Massively. The emergence of dreamwalking throws a huge ethical wrench into her development. This power gives her intimate access to other people's minds. She can literally walk into their thoughts, influence their perceptions. It's an incredibly potent ability, almost godlike in its potential.
But also terrifyingly easy to misuse.
Exactly. It immediately forces Violet to question where empathy ends and manipulation begins. It fundamentally reshapes her self-image. Is she a protector, or is she, terrifyingly, a potential violator of consent, even if for a good cause? Remember that chilling line from the venin general, Maven? She observes Violet and says, brilliant, reckless woman. It perfectly hints at Violet's evolving, morally ambiguous identity. She's walking this incredibly fine line between using her power for good and maybe succumbing to its corrupting influence. And that tension is just palpable whenever she uses it.
And this transformation, this darkness, it doesn't just affect them, does it? It ripples outwards, affecting everyone around them.
Yarros does a great job showing that broader emotional and relational fallout. You see strained mentorships, like Xaden's own mentor, who now has to confront a student basically transformed into an adversary. It shows how power can just flip roles, shatter dynamics that seem solid. You see genuine heartbreak among their allies. Friends who were once their anchors, their support system, they find themselves alienated. They struggle, understandably, to reconcile the people they loved with these destructive, darker forces those people have become.
They become isolated.
Exactly. Both protagonists end the novel more isolated, more alone than ever before. Xaden is consumed by venin, stripped of his former self. Violet is burdened by memory loss, cut off from her dragon, trapped in forgotten marriage. It powerfully highlights that mastering dark power, even if it saves the day, often exacts this profoundly lonely, isolating toll. It really forces you to question if the victory was truly worth that devastating personal cost.
And the storm itself, the Onyx Storm, it feels like more than just a battle tactic. It's a symbol for all this transformation, isn't it?
It absolutely functions as powerful narrative symbolism, uniting these character arcs and hammering home that core theme of transformation. Just like a real tempest rips up trees, reshapes the land, leaves destruction behind. These encounters with darkness irrevocably alter Violet and Xaden's identities. The storm imagery isn't just describing a fight, it vividly visualizes the internal chaos raging within each character. It turns their inner conflict into this epic spectacle on the battlefield. And the aftermath, the ruined city, the shattered alliances, the deeply scarred psyches, serves as this stark visual reminder of how power, when corrupted by darkness, leaves absolutely nothing untouched. It's a constant, powerful reminder of the profound consequences of their choices.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. This book isn't just popular, it's a genuine cultural moment, captivating millions. Why? Let's look at why Onyx Storm has grabbed so many hearts, and maybe touch on some of the critiques too, because it definitely sparked a lot of passionate discussion and debate online.
Indeed. Its critical reception and its commercial success are just undeniable. Truly unprecedented in modern adult fantasy, really. On release, Onyx Storm didn't just hit #1, it became this global phenomenon, selling 2.7 million copies in the first week.
Still staggering.
It is. To put that in context, it makes it the fastest-selling adult novel in 2 decades. That's just an astounding achievement, putting it in a league of its own. Critics have mostly praised its really robust, immersive world building, the incredibly high emotional stakes that just keep you reading, keep you invested, and especially that masterful, absolutely gut-wrenching cliffhanger ending that, as one review said, leaves fans wanting more, maybe agonizingly wanting more.
Yeah, wanting is putting it mildly.
Right. A 5-star review on Readsy called it a masterwork of tension, passion, and narrative, and specifically pointed to Violet's growth and that deepening, super complex bond with Xaden as the story's emotional heart. They praised its ability to evoke such strong feelings. And similarly, a review on her campus highlighted its fast-paced action and sweeping emotional arcs, noting how Violet and Xaden's mutual vulnerability really elevates their romance beyond just standard genre tropes.
But it wasn't universal praise, was it? There were some criticisms, too.
No, and it's important to acknowledge that range of reactions with any phenomenon. Some reviewers did find the constant stream of outlandish dangers, as one put it, and the heavy use of very specific magical terminology a bit overwhelming at times. They felt it could occasionally overshadow the core narrative, or maybe make it a bit tough for more casual readers to follow every detail.
Okay, fair enough.
And others, particularly readers perhaps looking for more complex literary prose, found some elements of the romantic dialogue at times a bit cringeworthy for adult readers. They felt it leaned into what they saw as maybe more trope-heavy or less nuanced exchanges. So while it's clearly this massive success, it's also a book that sparks healthy debate. It reflects different reader preferences and shows that even huge acclaim doesn't mean everyone agrees on every aspect.
So given all that, what do you think are the core drivers of this massive popularity? Beyond just the incredible sales numbers, what's really fueling this wildfire? What makes it more than just a book, but this cultural event?
Well, a huge undeniable factor is the social media buzz, especially its absolute dominance on BookTok. Onyx Storm is tagged everywhere as a must-read. That has fueled this explosion of fan creativity, amazing fan art, cosplay, really intricate fan theories dissecting every little clue and speculating wildly about what's coming next, and those viral cliffhanger reaction videos.
Yeah, the ones where people are screaming at the book.
Exactly. They capture that raw, unfiltered emotion of readers finishing the book. All of that creates this immersive, interactive experience that goes way beyond just reading the pages. It makes it feel like this collective event.
Right, you're part of something.
Precisely. Then there's the genre appeal itself. It hits that sweet spot perfectly, that blend of high stakes, epic fantasy with intense, emotionally charged romance. That's the absolute hallmark of the booming romantasy category right now. And Onyx Storm delivers on both fronts with incredible passion and urgency. It appeals equally to people who love epic adventures and those who crave passionate, complex love stories.
And the TV show news probably helps too.
Oh, definitely. The franchise potential is undeniable and feeds into that long-term excitement. With news already out about a TV adaptation for Fourth Wing, the first book, and these incredibly enthusiastic, active fan communities deeply invested in every character, every plot twist, the Empyrean series is really mirroring that early fan fervor we saw with huge franchises like Harry Potter or Twilight. People are invested in this world for the long haul. They want adaptations, merchandise, everything.
Yeah, it feels like it has legs.
And finally, just the sheer sales momentum tells a story. We saw exponential growth across the trilogy, from Fourth Wing to Iron Flame to Onyx Storm. That shows a rapidly widening readership. It's crossing over significantly into mainstream bestseller charts, reaching way beyond its initial fantasy romance audience and becoming a true pop culture staple.
So with all those factors playing a role, what specifically makes Onyx Storm stand out, even within this really popular romantasy genre? What makes it feel unique, distinct, not just another book with dragons?
It definitely carves out its own space with several key features that really elevate it. First, that innovative multi-island quest structure we talked about earlier.
Right, the mini arcs.
Yeah, where each place functions as its own self-contained escalating trial. It's not just a straight line, it's this series of distinct challenges that constantly builds pressure and reveals new layers of the world without ever killing the momentum. It really feels like a proper hero's journey that tests every single facet of the protagonist.
Okay, what else?
Second, the really deep, often uncomfortable dive into moral boundaries through its dual signet magic system. Violet's dreamwalking, letting her into minds, and Xaden's venin-touched corruption, giving immense power at that terrible cost. Both of these probe ethical dilemmas much more deeply than your typical Dragon Rider powers. It forces the characters, and you, the reader, to really question the nature of heroism, of sacrifice. Is power always corrupting? Can you fight evil by becoming a lesser evil yourself?
That's a heavy theme.
It is. Third, that absolutely heart-wrenching climax, centered on profound self-sacrifice and that literal Onyx Storm reshaping both the battlefield and the protagonist's identities physically and metaphorically. It leaves them irrevocably changed, scarred, transformed. It feels like a true turning point for the whole series earned, but devastating. Fourth, something really important, the powerful and remarkably positive incorporation of disability representation. Violet's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the connective tissue disorder, isn't just backstory or a weakness to overcome. It's woven seamlessly into her heroism. It's part of her strength, her resilience, how she navigates her world. And that's incredibly impactful and resonated really deeply with a lot of readers.
Yeah, that felt very authentic.
Absolutely. And finally, that abrupt, disorienting memory wipe ending. It's such a bold, almost controversial narrative choice. It transforms what should have been a moment of triumph into this profound, dislocated grief, this existential question mark. It leaves both Violet and you, the reader, facing huge unresolved issues and this terrifying sense of not knowing what really happened. That kind of ending is audacious, and it contributes hugely to why the book is so unforgettable. It just stays with you long after you finish it.
This kind of immersive world, this level of emotional gut punch, this record-breaking success, it doesn't just happen randomly, does it? Rebecca Yarros clearly has this remarkable, almost meticulous way of building stories that allows her to create these worlds and these deeply affecting narratives.
She truly does. Her storytelling really thrives on what you might call the psychology of the writer, how an author's unique background and approach shape their work. Yarros has this incredible ability to infuse deeply personal experience into these sweeping, epic stories. She openly draws inspiration from her own life, historical events she's researched, profound relationships, and critically, her own personal experience with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which she shares with Violet.
Right, which adds that authenticity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It lends this incredible authenticity and depth to the character struggles, especially Violet's journey. It makes her triumphs, her challenges, resonate so much more powerfully with readers who might see parts of themselves or their own struggles reflected there.
And the characters themselves feel very real, very flawed.
Yes, she excels at developing deeply relatable characters. She meticulously crafts their backstories, their motivations, their flaws. You really feel like you understand why they act the way they do, even when they make frustrating choices. This ensures readers form these incredibly strong emotional bonds. You don't just read about Violet and Xaden, you feel with them, you root for them, you agonize over their decisions.
Yeah, you get invested.
Totally. And her strength also lies in using really vivid sensory imagery and authentic sounding, impactful dialogue. It immerses you fully, not just in the big epic moments, but also in the quiet, intimate ones. It makes the world feel tangible, the characters feel vibrantly real. When Violet feels pain, you almost feel it too. When she feels love, you understand the depth of it.
And she balances the romance and the action really well.
Masterfully. That balance between romance and suspense is a hallmark of Romantasy, and she nails it. She weaves these intricate, complex plots with this steady, driving pace. She maintains tension right from that first island trial all the way through to the final devastating storm. The story never really feels like it lags. It's always pulling you forward, making it incredibly hard to put the book down.
It's addictive.
It really is. And just on a personal note, her creative discipline is quite remarkable. She talks about maintaining dedicated writing routines, using music, creating a structured environment to navigate distractions, even her own physical challenges from EDS. It really showcases the immense rigor, dedication, and sheer craft that goes into producing this kind of creative output. It reminds us that even the most fantastical, seemingly effortless stories require incredible discipline and hard work behind the scenes.
Okay, so if Onyx Storm totally captured your imagination, left you breathless, maybe a little traumatized, and definitely desperate for more, you're probably wondering what else is out there? What offers that same amazing blend of dragon action, intense romance, and that really intricate, often morally gray world building? What would you recommend for our listeners who are craving more of that specific feeling?
Oh, there are definitely some fantastic books that hit similar notes that resonate with Onyx Storm's unique appeal. If you're looking for, say, rival dragon factions, complex court intrigue, and a really sweeping slow burn romance set against this looming dragon apocalypse backdrop, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon is this magnificent standalone epic that tons of people love.
Oh yeah, heard great things about that one.
It's fantastic. For a more classic coming-of-age story, young boy bonds with a dragon, gets swept up in political upheaval in this richly imagined world. You can't go wrong with Aragon by Christopher Paolini. It's a beloved starting point for many fantasy readers.
A classic for a reason.
Definitely. Now, if you enjoyed that intense mix of a powerful dragon rider who's also maybe an assassin dealing with forbidding magic amidst dangerous palace politics, all driven by a really compelling romance, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker could be right up your alley.
Okay, interesting mix.
Yeah, for high-stakes desert quests, cool alchemical magic systems, and a star-crossed love story packed with moral gray areas very similar to Onyx Storm's blend of danger and desire. You might want to check out Quicksilver by Callie Hart.
Got it.
Then there's Seraphina by Rachel Hartman. This one's set in a world where dragons can actually take human form, which leads to tons of political intrigue. The heroine has this forbidden, dangerous identity she has to keep secret. Really compelling.
Ooh, dragons in disguise. Nice.
And finally, maybe The Last Namsara by Kristen Ciccarelli. It features this fierce dragon slayer confronting her destiny, rediscovering transformative love amidst some harsh betrayals. It hits a lot of the same powerful, emotional, and fantastical notes, that mix of action, romance, and difficult choices.
So what's the common thread running through all of those? What makes them feel like they echo Onyx Storm?
Well, there are several core similarities that fans of this kind of romantasy really seem to cherish. Obviously, they all feature dragons as central figures, sometimes as characters, sometimes as powerful forces woven into the world's fabric. They all manage that tricky balance between high-stakes fantasy, epic battles, world-ending threats, and really emotional, often intense romance that drives the characters just as much as the external plot does.
Right, the romance isn't just tacked on.
No, it's integral. Political intrigue is also key in all of them. Court scheming, fragile alliances, devastating betrayals. It heightens the tension way beyond just fighting monsters. The protagonists in all these stories go through profound growth through hardship. They're transformed by pressure, much like Violet is. And finally, a recurring theme one Onyx Storm tackles so directly is moral ambiguity. Heroes constantly face these no-win choices that test their loyalties, fundamentally reshape their sense of self, and leave you, the reader, pondering the true, often heavy cost of their heroism.
Wow. Okay, we have journeyed through some incredibly complex territory today. Through the fragile alliances and the deep betrayals, we witnessed that cataclysmic Onyx Storm literally reshaped the land and the people in it. And we've explored the profound, often truly heartbreaking transformations of Violet and Xaden. It's really been quite a ride through this extraordinary book.
It has been, and I think it shows that Onyx Storm is so much more than just a fantasy novel with dragons. It's a story that relentlessly explores the true, agonizing cost of what it takes to win. It examines how identity gets reshaped under unimaginable pressure, and it looks at how love, in its purest and sometimes most desperate forms, can be both this powerful salvation and, terrifyingly, a destructive, all-consuming force that leaves absolutely nothing untouched in its wake.
And as we wrap up, it really does make you think, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
When you love someone that deeply, when the fate of everything you know hangs in the balance, how much of yourself, how much of your morality, maybe even how much of your most precious memories would you actually be willing to sacrifice for them? And maybe the harder question is, once that sacrifice is made, once the darkness has inevitably taken its toll, what's left behind, can that ever truly be called a triumph?
That's the question it leaves you with. We really hope this deep dive has encouraged you to maybe pick up Onyx Storm if you haven't already experienced its power and its heartbreak. Or perhaps if you have read it, maybe this conversation helps you revisit its pages with a fresh perspective on the intricate plot, those powerful themes, and all those deliberately unanswered questions we've uncovered today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.